have such sights to show you. We're Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me, as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron. Aaron,
hey.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
I
Christmas.
right?
Hey, I guess you could call me your part two, you know what I'm saying?
You kill me, boss. I'm definitely gonna have to take it easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely been a while since I had to call off since I had lost my voice entirely. Yeah, bear with me in mind that my angelic voice is not quite 100%. Because I truly feel that way about my own voice, especially having to listen to hours and hours of editing this footage.
I'm sure that makes you love it.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, this will be the sexy version. You got a little bit of grit to it,
just the ASMR version, like, welcome back to Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Allow me to edit here. That was me editing on the keyboard. Wow, we're really riffing super hard so far. So
yeah, but let's get into the silence, the deadliness, and the night.
Yeah, and the nightness.
Yes.
Twice. Anyways, yeah, so you're actually pretty pumped about watching this movie, considering that you mentioned in a previous episode you and your brother used to quote arguably probably the most popular line in this movie, Garbage Day.
Garbage Day, yeah, without really ever connecting it to the movie in context at all, because I just know it from that YouTube clip, but...
Yeah, so that's basically about the only knowledge you knew of it and everything.
But then we watched the first Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, and just to kind of give an idea for background for the audience, that's basically the same exposure I had. There was like, I don't know, what would you say, like 2010, 2011, whenever that clip surfaced on the internet earlier?
It was definitely early YouTube days, yeah. Like, I looked up the clip again before this episode, and it was uploaded 18 years ago.
Oh my gosh, so like 2006 then. Yeah. So it's like prime early YouTube years, because YouTube started like, 2004? And then 2006, I feel like, is whenever more interactions were going on at that time. So that's the only reason why I know about this film, because it's like one of those things like, oh my gosh, look at this film clip and everything, how ridiculous it is and everything else. And basically I think that's what's brought up this movie back to the surface. And I think that's kind of like the crazy thing about the internet, because obviously nobody ever really talks about Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1 even, let alone Part 2 or whatever. So it's like one of those like weird niche franchises. I know that whenever the first one came out, there was a lot of people being upset about it, saying like, put the Christ back in Christmas and everything and get your Satan claws away from me. Whatever. Back then, I think there's even like old photos of them protesting. But aside from that, this film, especially being a sequel to that one, I don't know how well it would have stuck out, but I feel like because of the internet, it kind of made it pop back up in relevance, And so the question is, though, is that one clip going to be the shining moment, or is it just going to be kind of like the cherry, the beautiful mascarpone cherry on top of a really shit-ass sundae? And I've seen the film, so I'm going to keep my own judgment, so that way you're kind of going into neutral territory. But do you have any hopes, thoughts, aspirations? Granted, you already kind of have an idea on kind of maybe what the film's going to be like, considering you saw that clip, but especially since you really found the first one intriguing, I actually found it to be a way better film than you anticipated.
Right. Yeah, the first one has way more interesting elements, was also way more like intense than I expected. So I guess those are the two things I'm expecting from this, is maybe some like, because the first one had some raunchy, kind of on the edge of, like, well, I mean, some gruesome stuff, there's some shocking stuff in that movie. Not to get into any spoilers, but yeah, so I'm like, I don't know if this one's gonna shock me to the same degree. And then I also don't know if I hope it has the same level of interest and layering, but it is a sequel, so you can never be too certain that it's gonna match the level of the first one.
Yeah, I think you're setting the right idea kind of going into this, not hyping it up too much, but also not kind of coming at it from a lot more judgy angle and everything. So, only way to find out whether this meme is more than just a meme, we will be right back whenever we watch the film. Baby.
See ya.
Say the line, Bart.
Garbage Day!
Yay!
And we are back from watching the...
They got you?
Yeah. It doesn't take much, fam. It doesn't take much, especially since there's like that long warm-up of me saying that you would... We just watched Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Now, Aaron, after nearly 20 years, basically, of seeing the original clip, potentially.
Yeah.
How is it to finally see the original film it came from?
Oh, flawless. Masterpiece. I'm only kicking myself for not watching it sooner.
I'm happy to hear that, buddy. I'm happy to hear that because...
What an insane movie.
Oh man, you're like, because you did have some criticisms of the first one, but this one clearly took care of any criticism you had of the first one.
I feel like looped all the way back around, like they did the bad things so bad in such a good way, that I don't even mind.
I feel like that's kind of an important thing to talk about, because I remember one of our, whenever we first became friends and started talking, one of the things that I brought up is how can you tell good acting from bad acting? Because at the time it's just one of those things where it's kind of subjective to me, or
absolutely,
anything else like that, and that's kind of what you mentioned to me, so I'm like, oh, okay. But the thing is about the acting in this film, and I feel like just bad acting in general, you can have bad acting that you're like, oh man, that's bad acting or whatever. But then you have bad acting that circumvents itself all the way around and just works.
Yeah.
It works. And I think it's not... The level of bad acting they have is not easy. Especially with the main lead and everything. Because it's one of those things that the performance almost circumvents itself to where it's they're acting in such a weird, bizarre way that it almost seems ingenious.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because it's easy to catch a clip from this and be like bad acting, because yes, that is the instant gut reaction of yes, well, they're not acting in the way that you would typically expect from a dramatic film that wants it to be taken seriously. But in the context of this insane, batshit crazy movie that is already looks and sounds and everything way better than it should for the content of the film, I feel like the line deliveries being weird and off-putting and strange is just baked into the weird, off-putting and strange design of the film, and not just bad acting. So it becomes more than the sum of its parts whenever everybody has this weird, jarring line delivery style, especially the main character, but then it's that's kind of the idea of the movie, is to make you weird and unsettled. But
yeah, it's so bizarre, and I have way more points to give to it and everything, but definitely think it's important to kind of open up with that idea, because I don't know, bad acting, it's it's almost like an art to it, but you can't be doing it intentionally. I feel like, I mean, you can,
no,
but
right, you can't be. I feel like there's a difference between shooting for quote unquote bad acting and then having a specific style, and I think this film is just stylized. And it's I think a lot of it's their features, not bugs. You know what I mean?
Yes,
yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. So yeah, we'll talk about the plot here real quick before diving into our cast of characters. So first off, spoiler alert for Silent Night, Deadly Night, because we're gonna spoil it because it's in continuation of it.
So,
But
also,
but not only that, you're going to get spoiled even if you hadn't seen it if you jump straight to this film. So, yeah, basically, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 takes place after the events of the first film and instead follows the brother of Billy, Ricky, who we got to see glimpses of in the first film, and how Ricky's doing after that whole fiasco that happened in the first film. And turns out not too good, considering he's currently in a psych ward currently. And this guy starts interviewing him, asking him about his past history and how he got to where he is right now. And Ricky regales us a magnificent tale showing us exactly where he's been and where he plans on going. So let's talk about plot and how they progress it, because you've seen flashbacks. Usually it's very much a necessity in a lot of films, especially sequels, to kind of like show, hey, this is what happens in the previous film and everything,
right? And
doing that, and you
this
have
time period particularly because you couldn't just go watch it on Netflix or whatever. You know what I mean? They had to because you probably didn't see the last film. Potentially, they also have to explain it a lot more than they do now. But
yes, but this film, in case you just wanted a general Sparks Note version of the first one, you basically get to watch it compressed to 20 minutes. And it's not even just like oh, hey, this crazy thing happened to my brother whenever I was little, and this happened. No, you get the entire film in the first 20 minutes, which not gonna lie,
maybe even 30. It felt like
it
goes on for a while.
It feels like it feels more than 30 minutes. I'm being generous with like how long the
probably
flashback
is realistically 20, but because we've seen this movie before, it's just like okay.
Which is it's funny because like it's one of those things that like watching it, I don't mind seeing clips of the first one per se because I like it.
Same,
but the problem is they make it to where you just feel like you're watching clips on YouTube and everything. You're just watching the film. And, it's one of those things that as well, it's just like, I like the first film and everything, but come on, movie. Like, I've seen this before.
Right, like I didn't pay to get a ticket to see the first movie. This is part 2.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that they really... because the way they show it is they literally play clips of the first movie in this movie, and it's long segments, not very edited much. There is some editing, but really very minimal. Yes, so it honestly, and it's bad because it's one of those back and forth things. Like, they show all the kills in the first film, which is fun, but at the same point. It's just kind of slows it down because we're like, yes, we know what happens.
Right, and it feels a little goofy just watching the kills of, like, random people that were not named characters in the plot. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and we have to watch this again for plot reasons or just because you wanted to show us the film? Yeah, and
in all honesty, the only thing I could think of is the fact, budget-wise, they were like, hey, we need to stretch this film out further. We already have access to this film, which is going to provide extra kills and everything, which, for somebody that's never seen the first one, that's good and great and everything, but I don't know. Also, the way they cut it up, I just felt like the gravity of it was taken away. It's just like, I don't know. Like, you could still laugh at it because it's still good clips and everything, but that's just because the first one's actually a pretty decent movie and everything.
Right.
But like I said, it just really sucks the steam out of the story. Because in all honesty, whenever we're ahead again, I'm like, I know this is probably going to drive you crazy, but is it going to take you so much out of the film that the film is having to spend the rest of the time pulling you back in?
I was chilling, I guess. I was fine with it. I don't know. On a different day, I might be like, bro. Bro, let's go. But I was fine with it. It did feel like a highlight reel, like here's the clips and we're watching all of them. And because I liked the clips, I didn't mind, but it was without a doubt excessive.
Dude, so excessive. And if it wasn't for the fact, and I guess we'll mention this with characters, about the main characters kind of interjecting their narrative and kind of saying stuff to break up the monotony, it would just feel way worse. Because already the clips are long enough, and that's about the only thing that catches us on guard, is that they'll edit a random voiceover or Ricky's face there and everything. But then afterwards, I feel like the plot is just stupendous. Yeah, it's stupendous. After you get to the flashback, you're like, okay, let's get to Ricky's life and everything.
Yeah. Honestly, I was locked in.
Yeah, you're like, all right, buckle up, buckaroos.
I'm interested in Ricky's upbringing. Yes, continue.
Because it is such the way the plot progresses. As soon as we get to like his foster parents adopting him and pulling him back, the highlights that he mentions just feel so uncharacteristic, because he will make the big things that feel like they should be a bigger part of his life small.
Yeah.
And these violent instances so big and giant. And it's honestly funny, because it's not only just Ricky's just view of the world and how he deals with it, but literally other people in the world as well that just sort of add to the madness. It's sort of like, you know how Invader Zim, everybody on the planet is dumb, like including the aliens, and that's just kind of like the unique universe. That's
right.
I almost feel like it's there and everything.
Right.
Almost with just.
That's what I mean by like the style. The whole film just has an overarching, very cohesive, like everybody exists in this world. It's a completely different. I mean, that's the beauty of genre, when you feel like you're in everything, every detail is completely different than it would be in the real world, even though it mimics the real world. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and it's just, and again, it's highlights of Ricky's life. It feels like that's just popping off and everything, which is at that point works out fantastically and everything.
I know which part you're thinking of too, with the truck.
Yeah.
And how the woman reacts to that.
Just, red car.
Red car. You're getting closer. Good point. That's what he said.
Oh my god. Good point.
I love the way. Yeah.
Oh
part of what I think I like this movie so much is it reminds me a lot of American Psycho. The way Christian Bale acts that character.
Yes, like the over extenuation and everything.
You like Huey Lewis in the news? You know, like it's that.
I never made that connection. You know, that's honestly pretty good.
That's why I'm like, it's not bad acting per se, it's like a style. And it is bad, like as far as like that's not how you're supposed to deliver lines, but it's like kind of perfect.
But it's
that's
just kind
the
of
way he should deliver those lines.
Yeah, that's so good. You made the correlation between American Psycho and this film. Which, by the way, makes me curious because you rated it a 10 out of 10 on the podcast. So
I wouldn't get your hopes too high. This is no American Psycho, but this is a good movie.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. So yeah, we could talk more about the plot and kind of like how the plot wraps up and everything else like that. But let's get to some of the actors.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about the man of the episode, the pivotal character, the crowning jewel on this film, I would argue. Eric Friedman, who plays Ricky Caldwell.
Yeah, more like ripped. Holy shit, that guy's yoked.
He is so ripped and everything. And
his routine.
Oh my gosh. And
his older brother was too. I mean, it's just the theme is just ripped as Santa weapons.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, interesting thing about him. Obviously, that clip that you mentioned, you watched with your brother, he was obviously the main pull with it, with his style of acting and everything.
Garbage day.
And here's the interesting thing about him. Whenever this film came out, they panned it, as you can imagine.
Right.
And they lambasted him to the point where he basically shunned himself from the public eye and nobody could find him. He was like gone for decades. Mind you, this film came out in 87 and everything. And so literally this was about the only film he was in and everything, and he would end up getting on some early films or whatever, but his like acting thing was so short. But yeah, basically because people like were goading him on and on about like the acting of the film, like, oh, that film's bad, you're a terrible actor and everything. He just literally shunned himself from the public eye.
Yeah.
And then with that YouTube clip circulating, it brought like new, fresh life and perspective to it. And people tried to seek him out. They're like, who is this guy and everything? And they actively were trying to find him at that point. And whenever they were trying to find him, he was like trying to dodge bullets. He was just sort of like, please leave me alone. Like I'm already humiliated enough as is and everything. And it kind of took him a while before people were able to come up to him and like, no, we love you. We love you and your acting and everything he did. And like they, on this Scream Factory disc that I have, which if you like the first and second films, highly recommend Scream Factory's copies of them because they have great behind the scenes interviews with the actors in current day. They brought him back and everything, and
that's awesome.
And it's amazing because I actually heard some extra like commentary about it because one of the people that edited it, his name's Justin and everything, he actually conducted the interview. He talked about like how whenever they walked in and everything, that he was very nervous and kind of just very reserved to kind of even come out about talking about this film on an interview because again, years of being told like it's bad, you're bad and everything.
Man.
And being
look what happened to the kid from Phantom Menace.
I know, you saw how he turned out, but yeah, so they had that going on or whatever, and yeah, they had that going on, and as the interview continued on, he started to loosen up and everything else, and then at the very end, whenever they wrap it up or whatever, it's basically, good Lord, lost my mind there. Eric kind of being just like thankful for this film after a long time of feeling like he should be ashamed of it and everything.
Aww.
And at the end, like whenever he kind of says his final thoughts and words, like he's almost like to tears and everything, just kind of taking in the impact of how this had it. So on the editing, Justin purposefully left the film like unedited just to kind of have that empty space whenever other people are acting, because you could just see Eric is just kind of seeing this as so surreal for him and everything. And this is a funny side tangent and everything. They did actually film a teaser of like if they made a follow-up to this film and everything. Potentially like if they brought the character back and everything, they actually filmed an entire thing where they tried to find the exact outfit he wore for part 2 and everything, and whenever he helped kind of film it, which it's an amazing short extra. I'll try to link it on YouTube and everything. He came out and he's like, this feels good, this feels familiar and everything, because they had to look for specific shoes and clothes and everything for it. So it's a really interesting clip you also check out. But let's talk about this man's acting.
Yes.
The delivery he has is his own. There is nobody except maybe, like I said, Christian Bale.
Right. That's what it
and that's
reminds me
pretty
of.
good.
Right. I don't think they're, but you just spit in the same bars, but I mean, it definitely gives the essence of, Christian Bale in American Psycho. That same, just weird, like, more than a little bit off, but like not crazy excessive, I don't know how to describe it, but.
Yeah, well, and if it says anything at all, American Psycho came out in 2000, so this precedes at 13 years, so I'm sure Christian Bale's like, not too bad. Let's see how I perform.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see Paul's perform.
Let's see Christian Bale's perform.
But like, again, like, there's a reason why everyone remembers it's Garbage Day.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a unique delivery. Not only vocally, but just expression-wise on his face and, like, the character choices he makes in the moments. It's one of those things that, it just, again, like you mentioned, Aaron, it feels very stylized and everything. Like, the pacing in the room and the awkward arm on the wall and everything.
Yeah.
It feels natural almost. It like circumvents, like it works.
But
and
it's got that goofy sort of like Jim Carrey comedy ass shit in it. It's got that sort of like I don't know, but that brings so much charm to the performance to me.
It really does. And again, it's like you just totally, you're just buckled in. You're like, all right, yep, I'm sold, Ricky. I'm sold. Yes. So it's one of those things that this, no doubt, my rating for this film basically rests on Ricky's shoulders. So Eric just absolutely hit it out of the park as a performance as Ricky. And that's why you should watch this film.
Yeah.
He is the titular reason why this film should exist and why it is worth your time to watch it. I mean, I'm already spoiling it, but
and luckily he is the center of the film throughout. We don't wander off to random side stories or not. It is once you get past the entire recap of the first movie, it's all about this guy.
Yes, very much so. And just again, like oh man, red car.
Point.
God, just doing that. Tough thinking, Doc.
Yeah.
Now you're catching on. He's just
unhinged.
He's so unhinged, and it's perfect and beautiful. He, Eric, for all the crap he got about this film and everything, deserves twice the praise and everything.
Does. I don't know how you can't. I know how you could see that and be like, that's a bad performance. I guess. I guess how you could get there in your mind, but it just strikes me as so perfect. You know what I mean?
Yes, I would agree.
It seems intentional. He seems in the film all intentional. The goofy shots of just like suddenly he's right next to this person's ear and he's like, "Hello," just the film, the editing matches his intensity, like his performance. They're all on the same level, and that's why it just clicks and it works. Unlike, I don't know, not to shoot this dead horse too much, but like Leprechaun or something, where it's just like a bad movie that's just bad. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's not all flowing together. The pieces are clunking together, and it's rigid and blah blah blah. It's not as enjoyable as this one where everything's on the same page. You know what I mean? And it's like it just goes and it works.
That is kind of interesting because again, like it is credit to the film because there is films like Leprechaun where Warwick Davis is awesome. The best part and everything, but yet he can't save the film from just sucking majorly.
Because the other actors aren't on the same page. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this film just works out because they are locking on solely on Ricky. Mm-hmm. Rarely do you ever sway off to a different character or anything else like that. It is all eyes on Ricky and everything. And the performance he brings and the way the supporting actors react to him and everything. Because you have the guy interviewing him just kind of being more neutral and everything.
When he started to sweat.
Oh, God.
Who is this man? Everybody brings the intensity, even though they don't have the same line delivery or whatever, the same presence that the main character does. I do think everybody matches ultimately the intensity and bizarreness that the film demands.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, we could get to continue on and on and on, but it's truly one of those things that, like, yes, do I think, like, the meme clip that went around for him, Garbage Day and everything, probably the best, like, moment in the film? Probably, but that shouldn't mitigate the fact of how much like extra pizzazz he brings to the film.
And also the popular version of that clip that goes around is only like a minute of like, I don't know, like a 3 or 4 minute scene that is so actually, and the whole scene's actually kind of amazing.
The whole segment is like perfect. Like if only one part could be preserved, it is that part for sure.
But it all builds up to that part. So I kind of think that that is the climax.
In all honesty, I would agree with that. Because the film does try to go for a different sort of like climactic ending and everything. Right. But for me, in my heart and my eyes, that segment is the climax. That is like the big major reveal and everything. And yeah, like I said, he just absolutely kills it. I honestly, he has the perfect performance for this film
Yeah.
and everything.
I would
So,
agree.
you know, like, again, it feels weird to like rate them up there with like others that are like, you know, theatrically like perfect or just like, oh my gosh, like
Right.
that performance unbelievable. This is like a league of its own. This is like
this is a different art form. We're like, you know, we're not rating photography anymore. This is like the best pastel painting I've ever seen. Or whatever. Like, this is something else, but you know, it feels unfair to rate them in the same category. But
yes, that's exactly how I feel.
It would be like if I was rating The Room on this podcast. It's like that's not. It's like The Room was, you know, if I had to rate it critically, no, it's a fucking terrible movie. But they all happened. It just happened to be terrible in the right mixture that like worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll probably continue praising his performance and everything. I guess it's kind of hard to talk about other characters because they are so minor in the grand scheme of things. Because like I said, there is like, you know, the guy who plays the psychiatrist and everything, Dr. Henry or whatever, played by James Newman. And again, it's like, yeah, he's great. And because again, he also is just amping it up just by it. He's like, it's like a basic performance, but it's flavored enough to fit within the
right. Well, he's playing the straight man, but he does a great job doing it. I mean, everybody in the that's the thing is the main character isn't the straight man ever. He's the wacky guy, and then everybody else. It's like a comedy, you know, where Jim Carrey's walking around doing like doing, and everybody has to match that energy while being fucking normal, and you know.
Yes.
So that, but I think they pull it off. This guy especially.
Yes. So I would agree with that and everything. It is man, like I said, and it's probably one of those things that we'll probably have to talk more about the actor's performance whenever it shows certain clips and everything, because in all honesty, I feel like if I talk about certain characters' performances, it's so way far in the story.
Because everything's way far in the story.
It's just like random moments. So again, it's almost like kind of pointless to kind of go through our normal, like, here's your cast of characters you have and everything. It's just it's just basically Ricky going along and seeing all the weird folks he comes across.
I think that's also especially true given that the meat of this movie is actually really short, because I think they padded a lot of it with the first movie.
Oh my gosh.
So as far as like original content in this movie, it's like I'm watching an old anime episode or something where like an old episode of Naruto where the first 5 minutes was the last episode.
Yes.
You know?
Oh my gosh. Like, and that, like, I know we mentioned this already, but seriously, with the plot, you could have had flashbacks, but like compress it to 5 minutes, maybe.
Right. But yeah, that means what's remaining is like, we can't get that far into it without getting too crazy. Because there's just less film. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like I said, it was budgetary reasons. Like, we don't have to shoot any extra stuff and everything. I suppose, which, you know,
it
like,
always saves money.
At the very least, I felt like the money was well spent on the rest of the film.
It is a good looking film. It doesn't look like, I mean, the content that you would expect of this movie, I had expected it to look more like schlop. You know what I mean? But
yes, but
it is very well made. Schlop.
Yes, I would agree with that. Man, I'm trying to figure out anything we can talk about because, again, the film is so unique with the way it's set up and everything that I don't know how much I can disclose without spoiling it.
True.
But
we can always hop over to the spoiler section.
Yeah, I guess. This one's like very weird. Okay, here's one of the things that got me that I want to ask you about.
Yep.
The music in this film, I felt like was either pretty like, wow, this is good, or very not bad, but just odd.
I think it's compelling at times.
Yes.
Compelling is the word, but it's not necessarily like pleasant on the ears, but it will draw you. Sometimes it'll be sharp in there. I don't know, like it's sometimes unnerving, you know, sometimes jarring. I think it fits with the ambiance of the whole film.
It's almost like The Shining, how there's not really a soundtrack.
No, you're right.
Yeah, but like weird noises. But again, this is like nowhere near as like I would argue as refined as the music for The Shining, but just
No.
almost reminds me of that.
No, it doesn't.
But-
It didn't feel like necessarily they had a whole team of composers smoothing it out and deciding what the best decision was. It was more. It just seems more like art, you know, like they're throwing in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's not mixed great at times, but like it seems like that's the point. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I will give away is the fact that yes, this film does have like a lot of kills being like, you know, talking about moments in his life or whatever and
True.
all the stuff that happens. How did you feel the kills were?
I honestly thought, you know, to quote George Lucas, you know, kind of rhymed with the first movie. You know, 'cause the first movie's really strangely like an anthology too, where they sort of track the older brother growing up, and you know, obviously to show the trauma and then how it shows in his life until he ultimately becomes, you know, bad guy Santa Claus killer. Man, sorry for the spoilers of the first movie.
Yes.
But this movie is like kind of tracks the same way. He literally in the first part of the film where he's just recapping his brother's life to also recap his own. He was like, I was a baby then, but you know.
Yeah.
But then yeah, I liked how it was an anthology again to match the energy of the first movie, but still tell a completely different story once they got to the completely different story part.
Yeah, I would definitely agree because I feel like they, you know, a lot of times with horror films, they're like sort of rinse, repeat. Like, do the same thing in the first film, just flavor it differently.
Right.
And while I feel like they do that, it doesn't make me feel like I'm watching a less superior version of the first one, which is impressive and everything. Because I do want to ask your opinion on this, because that was actually one of your favorite things I remember about the first film, is kind of diving into the psychology of Billy, dealing with that. How did you feel about the psychology of Ricky?
I mean, it plays on a similar note, but like with a much different result. You know what I mean? You don't really get to see the crazy older brother in the first film, but then in this film, you get to see like from the end, you know, because we start and he's in the psych ward, you know what I mean? And he's crazy the whole time, and you gotta get to work reverse engineer with it. And he has like a whole personality versus. I love the way it was handled in the first film, where he's just like punish, you know. And we get to see that in this movie too. We get to see a fair amount of punish, you know. But like it's a different vibe whenever you get to see him when he's not in kill mode too, you know.
Yeah, I would agree, because there's definitely some times where I was like, kind of like, I feel like they're trying to copy sort of the same trauma Billy had onto Ricky, even though they were at different ages, exposed to different things.
Right.
But I feel like there's enough there for me to be like, okay, I buy it.
I feel like that's also kind of an existing trope by this point in film history. I mean, I'm not the biggest buff on that kind of thing, but it seems like, you know, the sequel-itis of someone else witnessed the horrors and then they pick up the mantle of the killer is like a common enough trope that I'm just like okay with it going in. But
yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. Man, aside from that, anything else you want to like mention before spoilers for this film or anything?
No, I mean, I'll just mention that, yeah, if you are at home and you are only listening to this point because you don't want to, you know, spoil yourself for the first movie or this movie. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly still graphic and violent and a lot of sexual violence and uncomfortableness. It is still, despite being so fun, it is also so very graphic in parts.
Yes, thank you for the warning for that and everything. Which it's so bad because a lot of times, like, they just also again just use a lot of the very, very hard to watch clips from the first one and just flash it again and again.
They're like, watch this whole clip again, guys.
Yeah, doing that. But I do want to touch on one thing, and I very much want to hear your opinion, because we mentioned this while watching it, but there is a point in the movie that Ricky's telling a story about him going to the movie theater, and nah, you're gonna have to wait on spoilers for that. I want to save it for kiddies at home. I can't bring it up.
There are some absolutely ridiculous
man,
characters.
I'm just like,
that movie theater has, like, it just proves how insane all the side characters could be too, actually.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, audience. I was going to mention it, but I'm like, Nah, I can see the barrel of monkeys this situation is going to be talking about. That's going to lead to one thing to another, so it's best to kind of draw the line in the sand here about spoilers going ahead. So Aaron, before we get to spoilers, how's about that rating for Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2?
Yeah, as we discussed, this is always a funny one because like this type of movie, I think, is like, I don't know. I think there's probably a way that you could do this that's completely perfect, and I'd give it a 10 out of 10, but I feel like it's so much harder than, like, a traditional narrative, because it is so, like, out there, and experimental, you know? So, with that in mind, it's like, this is not going to be a 10 out of 10 for me, but it is still an excellent, excellent movie. It is like an 8 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
It's, it is really just one of those experiences. Like, you gotta watch this movie. Like, this movie's insane. Like, this is fucking crazy. Yeah, I would give it that high. It does suffer a lot from, there is no business that first part should be that long. And some of the beats are a little bar for bar, just like, this is exactly what happened in the first movie, but now the younger brother's experiencing it in a slightly different setting. That said, I am actually amazed, given those 2 points, how well it was paced, how interesting the entire thing is, and bizarre and captivating. I mean, it is truly a masterpiece in some respects. And that is enough to give it an 8 out of 10 in my book. But.
That's pretty damn good, I would say, considering I was a little worried about how it was going to be and everything. Watching it, if it would meet your level.
I was worried it wouldn't get the same fun, crazy energy as the first, and I think not only did it do that, but it also topped it in certain ways, especially the entire Garbage Day segment. But.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Yeah, not gonna lie, I definitely was a little trepidatious watching it, because as I mentioned before, the first time I watched it, it was immediately after the first one. So you're talking about the first half slogging, whenever you've literally seen all the clips from the movie and everything. I was like, oh man, come on. And I'm not gonna lie, it took a while for the film to earn my attention back and everything, but I was still like enjoying Eric's performance as Ricky and everything. It was just definitely like, oh man, this backstory and everything is really dragging and everything else. I would say, but like I said, towards like the climactic, Garbage Day moment, it's like, just like ascending. But the thing that also kind of takes it away from me though is that the ending almost works.
Yeah,
it almost does, but it just almost, I can't describe it, but it just feels like it just kind of fizzles out almost. Like,
oh, interesting.
I don't know. Like,
because I kind of think I have almost the opposite opinion, where I think they just end with a bang. They're just like, and then it's just done.
That's true. Like I said, I don't know. We'll have to talk more about it and see if I can try to untangle my thoughts about it. Yeah. But like towards like once it gets to like the end of the film, I'm like, it doesn't feel quite as, I guess, like, I don't know. I hate to say perfect, but feels like more natural. Like the first ending of Silent Night, Deadly Night, I feel like has a much smoother.
I would agree that the ending of the first one's probably better.
Yes, like it just feels natural. Aside from that, oh man, you're talking. Okay, we've bitched and moaned about this flashback thing, but like they literally showed the cop going to the basement and walking around, which already felt long in the original film, and they just brought it back, and I was like, oh my god, like, yeah. So it just popped up in my mind talking about endings, and I was like, ugh, not that portion. Just how it resolves, I guess, the resolution.
Yes, I know what you're
saying. And so I think that's just one of those things that once I get to the resolution, which I think I have a couple of reasons as to why maybe I'm just kind of like about it. Yeah. It's still a serviceable end. It's serviceable for me. It doesn't ruin it. It's not like it takes the air out of it. It's just sort of like, okay. So, like, that stuff being in mind, I can't remember what I rated the first one. It might have been, like, a 7, maybe even an 8 or something like that. I don't know. It's tough. I would probably argue and be close with Aaron, though. Maybe I'd give it a 7 out of 10, only because the beginning does kind of suck it out for me, and then the end is bad. But this time round, I'm not going to lie, was a much more enjoyable experience. Like, probably first time watching it, not knowing what I was getting myself into, was like a 6. And I think I'm very glad we did not watch these back to back.
No, this is a bad one to watch back to back.
Yes, because it's like, oh man, like I said, I actually do love the first film quite a bit. I think it's a pretty solid film, like just technically speaking, but this creature is like its own definition of a film that also deserves equal respect. So I mean, like I said, they're pretty close together. Like for you, I remember I think you rated the first one like a 6 out of 10 and everything. And you're like, right. Yeah. And you're like, I was not expecting to give it that high of a rating.
Yeah.
Because it just sounded like a bad movie.
It did sound awful.
But yeah, I could also see why people would prefer the second one over the first one. For me, they're pretty dadgum close. If someone was like, I feel like if I just want to have a good time and everything, 2 is probably going to be the way. But if I just want just all the fun aspects, I feel like they both do their own creative things.
And honestly, maybe hot take, I feel like the first one's just a better Christmas movie. This one doesn't feel all that Christmassy.
I would argue with that, yeah, because they don't do a lot of Christmas stuff. I mean, even The Lion Garbage Day, I bet you never guessed it was a Christmas movie.
I had no idea that was from a Christmas movie. Yeah. just all I had the context of that video, I was just like, yep, this guy goes crazy and shoots some people on Garbage Day.
But yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I feel comfortable giving it a 7 and everything. But like I said, I think it also just sort of depends on repeat watches. Again, how you're feeling and everything else like that. But this film definitely, just because it's like 7 out of 10 in my eyes, like definitely deserves to be looked at and everything. Obviously, you just have to be careful about those trigger warnings, as we mentioned. But if you just... And also, I think this experience is heightened just being with a group of friends. It was just great just being able to, point out some of the stuff or whatever. Because, even my wonderful wife, whenever it came to the whole segment of Garbage Day and everything, she just said verbally, this is my favorite part. She just, locked in and everything.
It is
just
pretty much the reason to watch the movie.
I
think the
really
whole movie's
is
good, but, that's the peak.
Yeah, which I have to talk. It's actually kind of amazing considering sometimes if you have the zero context about it, it kind of makes it more funny. But having context about it, it somehow matches, if not just tops it even more.
Because you've been waiting for this. I think, and that's part of the power of the backward storytelling, where they kind of tell from I don't know, he starts his telling about his life and how he got there, and he's gonna bust out of this place and kill this guy, and so you're just waiting for it the whole time, and then once you get it, that's why it's the climax, because we're all building up to that point, and then everything after that part's resolution, and that's why it just concludes boom.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so that's basically our reviews. 8 for Aaron, 7 for me. Definitely give it a watch. It's very much worth your time. Both films are worth your time, very much for different reasons. But with that said, let's talk about spoilers. Aaron, please unwrap the first spoiler.
Garbage Day.
Garbage Day. Gosh, so
I don't know, man. This movie's so disorienting. I don't even know where to start with spoilers. Because we start in the beginning.
Yeah. Let's start at the deep beginning. Let's talk about the first film again.
Let's start with, I'm trying to remember what the first moment that was original was. It's whenever he gets adopted, right?
Yeah, it was whenever he gets adopted, because it leaves off after Billy gets shot and Ricky says naughty, that they're like, my parents well, no, not my parents. My foster parents came to get me.
I love because he's already like full Joker mode delivering, you know. And I thought like, and the way how insane the first movie was, and so they're recapping all of the moments from the first movie. I was like, yeah, this is just gonna be another unfortunate wagon. Like he's gonna have some really shitty foster parents or whatever. Because every moment up to this was just like the worst thing possible happened. Oops, sexually assaulted and murdered by raging Santa Claus. Oops, the orphanage is abusive. Oops.
Oops.
Oops. It's just like, wow, these kids have a real shit luck with life. But then he was like, I thought it was so funny that it's just like, yeah, they were pretty good, actually.
Subverting expectations, because you expect, like, oh man, all this trauma, it's going to be abusive foster parents. Nope, they're pretty good.
Actually, they did everything they could.
I don't blame them for
I don't
this.
blame them. I bless their hearts.
Yes. They were very good people.
But other unfortunate things happened later.
Yeah, because I want to talk about that trauma, because he talks about, like, again, he has flashbacks to, like, his birth mother being killed by that Santa Claus and everything.
Yeah.
But he was an infant at the time. And I know it's like one of those weird things where it's like, technically he was there, but he's a baby. How much can you remember of that? But then it's just like, I guess, hearing stories from Billy about it. But
yeah, that's how they just explained all of it. It felt very, like, hokey at the beginning.
It just felt like they wanted another version of Billy almost.
Yes.
And so I feel like it's sort of like, it's kind of cheap. But then again, he did see, like, Santa Claus get murdered before his eyes, then his brother get murdered before his eyes, and seeing his brother being bullied and punished relentlessly and everything.
It's funny because I think part of the effect of that beginning part being way too long, like the recap bit, is also like just sort of softened me to the idea that, like, yeah, okay, I believe that he's just like, yes, I believe that he picked up all of the same psychotic things that his brother did, just through osmosis or whatever. Like sure, you got me. I'm here. We watched the whole movie again. You're right. You're right. He is crazy.
Well, and it's kind of crazy too, because like in the first film, it was like sort of like, you know, the trauma Billy had along with Santa Claus were the two key factors that sort of made him go into psycho mode and everything.
Yeah, and then the weird combination of that when, like, seeing sexual acts as naughty, you know? Because that sort of colors his whole motive between everything.
But in this film, it's just the color red, and
yes, they just make him a bowl,
yeah, like it's just a sheet and everything, and it has a seizure. And then also sexual acts of violence.
Right. And I kind of bought that by the end almost a little bit, because he is like a baby, so maybe he had, or like just younger, and so maybe he had more simple associations with this naughty or whatever. He's just like red, Santa, bad blood, or whatever, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And so it's just, it's kind of interesting how they make red sort of the trigger color for him to start killing, because basically... I love him strolling in the field, which I just realized that was kind of odd. He was talking about his like foster parents being pretty good and everything, and then it's just like Dad died, so he's gone. Anyways, about this moment, it just like was like a weird thing to throw in that the dad died and everything.
It's just like just had to get the misfortune machine chugging again. You know what I mean?
I think you're right. Like, okay, we can't make it
died.
too traumatic. We got to make it like a normal, unexpected death.
Well, yeah, but it's like he died, and he talked about how he took it pretty hard. He's like, I took it pretty hard.
Most grounded.
Yeah, and he's just like, he was, like it's like, okay, like he's just explaining where all this trauma comes from. I guess I don't know. It gave it the same sort of like attention to psychiatric detail for some reason out of this weird slasher movie that the first movie had, you know? Like, here's the reason why he's so messed up. Here's the lore behind it, and part of it's like, and then he witnessed this, because he goes to the park after that.
Yeah, he's like in a field and he's like swinging a stick, you know.
Yeah. And he witnesses a picnic going wrong because the partner does another sexual assault. And he witnesses that in front of a red truck, and it all blends together. There's always just the perfect formula for killing for these two brothers. Somebody really wants them to kill.
Yes, very much so. And I just... It's so funny because you cut to, like, you know, him seeing a couple in a field. They're on a picnic blanket. Guy's chugging a beer. And he's, like, you know, flirting with his girlfriend. She's like, stop, you.
He's such a pig.
Yeah, doing that. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he's, like, trying to continue. And she's like, stop. And he's just like,
No.
yeah, doing that.
Make me.
And then it just like it progresses till she finally just like gets out of it. She's like, stop or whatever, and then he's like trying to push it, and that's what triggers him, and he's like, punish.
Right. I do kind of love the way the punishment went out. I hate like, that scene was uncomfortable because it is a mimic of like the first.
Yes, like that's
From
the
the first
only
movie.
reason why the guy acted the way he did on top of her, just to
like,
mimic
like
that.
the same movements and everything. Is like that whole scene is like a little like. But then I love that he's just in the passenger seat of the car.
Oh my gosh, how
the driver's seat.
smooth it is, because like it's one of those things where the guy's like, oh, whatever, I'm getting a beer, and he goes to the back of the Jeep, gets a cold one, walks past it, nobody's in the car, but then he decides to stand in front of the car, and by the time he's walking past the driver's side, goes to the front of the car, Ricky has slipped in, and he's just...
Well, first he like honks it, goes, and then he turns on.
Oh my gosh,
which
he
I
did
thought was a
honk the
great
horn.
detail.
And that guy, zero reaction. He like, even if he was plastered out of his mind, I imagine he have quicker reflexes.
He was just confused. He was like, "Why is that guy driving my car?"
Yeah, hey, that's my car.
Wait a minute.
And then, whenever he drives forward and runs him over, it doesn't really show the body getting ran over, but then you just see like the Jeep going back and forth,
just it up and then rolling forward and then backing it up again, just making sure he gets it.
Oh my gosh. And again, like the girlfriend like sees it, and you're getting prepared, like, okay, both these people are going to die or whatever, because literally a same interaction happened in the first film whenever Billy found like the coworker kind of getting like way too handsy with the other coworker and everything.
Right.
And whenever he kills them. At this point, I'm spoiling the first one because I don't know why you're here otherwise.
Also, it's going to be spoiled in this movie.
That is true.
It is double spoilers.
That's true. Double spoilers. And then she's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Which, again, we talked about kind of being like, that's kind of a weird reaction. It's understandable, but kind of weird to be that hostile. Like,
right. In the moment, especially, like, right after being saved from sexual assault and the moments after, to just be like, why'd you save me? Stop. I hate you. And I'm going to start attacking you.
But it's okay. This film definitely handles it much better. Totally.
Totally the best reaction.
The best reaction, because she comes up and, like, basically Ricky and her lock eyes, and she goes, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, does that.
Witnessing the most, like, ill intent, malicious vehicular homicide, just rolling over this guy multiple times, like, with a, acting the whole time. And then she's just like, thank you. Like, wow.
Yeah,
watching this active savagery.
Well, it's weird because, like, there was still, like, signs of, like, being amicable with her boyfriend and everything, because she's like, oh, stop, like, kind of flirty and everything, so you think she have some sort of attachment, but...
It was one of those things that's like, yeah, I mean, that was horrific. Like, it was a sexual assault that didn't quite go to, the worst lengths or whatever, but it was between two people that knew each other very well, and he just murdered one of those people, and this is somebody that she has mixed feelings about, presumably, but at least strong feelings of enjoyment, too. But just to be like, yeah, my literal boyfriend that... Even though he just tried to do a sex crime on me, you still probably don't want him murdered in cold blood in front of you. And if you do, you probably still don't walk up to the killer and go, thank you.
Yeah! And just, like, wandered off where fucking Ricky feels like a superhero or something like that.
And he's like, yeah, you're right. I should just go start running over people.
Yeah. I felt like also they had pretty good... actors to play younger Rickies and everything, both at 10 and 15 and everything, because apparently he's 15 at the time around there and everything else. But yeah, it's so bizarre that both films get this idea and go way too far in the opposite directions and everything. Definitely a middle ground, but in all honesty, I would not have that scene any other way. Like, whenever it came to the execution of the boyfriend and her response
yes,
to
it is actually perfect for this movie. Yes.
It works so... Oh man, it's so good. And then like I guess he jumps forward to talk about like I was working at the milkshake shack. And then like I guess there's like a load shark beating up this guy in the back alley who clearly enjoys his job. He's like, I hope you don't bring your money cuz I'm going to enjoy this. Like going in after that. And again, what triggers Ricky to attack him?
Is the
red car. Just kidding. No, that was the previous kill. No, this time it's red handkerchief.
Right. The bright red
Getting
handkerchief.
closer, Doc.
That he waves in front of his face. That's part of what I love about this movie, too, is the, like, really blatant, like, in-your-face symbolism. It's just like, there's the red. Like, and we're all bulls getting drawn to it. Yes! There it is. To the point where you can notice that just the subtle red monogram on the handkerchief later.
Yes, like the doctor sweating,
the doctor,
like,
and he's like, he can't wipe the sweat off his face because you'll show the handkerchief and unleash the beast. I love that so much. But
yeah, but like that, Ricky absolutely just bodies this guy, and we saw this guy beat up like a fairly scrawny guy or whatever, but he absolutely gets bodied by Ricky.
The classic hanging him by his throat by one hand in the air while just casually not breaking a sweat.
And how can you forget, while casually doing that, grabbing the weapon of choice, an umbrella.
Right. Which, this is actually, as much as I love the sequence that comes later, this is maybe the best kill in the film. Maybe.
I would argue.
It is definitely like top 3.
It was so hard because the first time I saw it, I had the worst time comprehending, like, that's not possible.
I know.
There's no way that umbrella could deploy, because whenever Ricky stabs the guy, it's deployed right through him and everything.
It doesn't make any sense, which is part of the beauty. But
yeah, and whenever Ricky just drops the dead body by the garbage, it just focuses on it, and then all of a sudden it just starts raining.
I love that, because they hold on it so you know something's coming, and then the rain just starts pouring in on this bloodied umbrella that's sticking out of the back of this guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that absolutely hilarious that they're just like, okay, we need more kills.
Yeah.
Let's just interject this one.
It goes so hard. Like, I don't know. It's shades of like samurai slashes the sword and then rain of blood comes down, you know?
Yeah,
it's just he's the perfect killer. He's him.
Yeah,
I easier to take out the garbage.
I could totally see that and everything. And then the next one, the flashback starts with Dr. Bloom showing a picture of Jennifer.
Jennifer, the only girl I ever loved.
Yes, who's played by Elizabeth Keitel and everything. And the way they describe it is like, we just bumped into each other. And by bump, Ricky is going backwards on his bike, pulling out of a parking spot, and she just hits him with her car.
And he like falls over on the bike. He's like pissed about it, and then until he sees her long legs, and they do the whole pan up the whole dress and everything. He's like,
yeah, and you had the best commentary for it, because, she does like a horrified, I'm like, sorry look, but then giggles, and you're like, oopsie. Vehicular manslaughter.
It's my third one this week.
And again, it once again works in that, and they go on a long ass bike ride. They really were like, we're getting the countryside with this. This is where the budget's going. That was one of those things like, okay, we get it. They're bonding. This is their bonding and everything going on. And then they have sex.
They do.
Which I can't remember if Eric said this was him or not. So take this with a grain of salt, I guess. But I guess because he knew there was going to be a sex scene coming up, he was so conscientious. He had to make sure he looked good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And everything. So with his jacked figured, I'm guessing so. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I could be thinking of a different film or something like that, but I believe he mentioned he was like, yeah, I was really nervous about being in that scene and everything, and I wanted to try to look my best. And I think that's probably what hurt his, like, overall self-confidence, even whenever people are like, oh, you suck, or whatever. He's just like, yeah, okay.
I'm so hot.
Yeah, but I'm hot. Oh, man. But, yeah, they focus on that sex scene, because, again, he's like, Jennifer was the first girl I was ever with. And I thought I was Jennifer's first.
Yeah.
Like foreshadowing something bad's gonna happen. And Then we get a flashback to the movie theater with Jennifer and Ricky as they're sitting there getting ready to watch a movie, and there is like the most over the top, obnoxious, annoying, as you say, guy in the theater who's like just take every annoying person you've ever seen in a movie theater and combine them into one entity. And that's exactly what this thing is.
You know that Whitest Kids You Know sketch with Abe Lincoln?
Yes!
it's just that guy.
Shit, now you fucked up. Yes, that's exactly the way this guy acts. And again, it's just to try to trigger Ricky and everything. Oh my gosh. And it is funny that they're saying in this film, and it's just like, they're showing trailers, and it's like, bloodshed, carnage, murder.
And then they slip in another moment from the first film.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the actual movie.
Right.
Yeah, this was just a trailer. And she's like,
that.
oh, you like this stuff? And he's like, yeah. Like just totally tone deaf and everything. But whenever he leaves or whatever to get something, I think he left after she was like, oh, this film sounds exciting. He's like, oh, what's it about? He's like, it's about a guy that dresses up as Santa Claus and kills people. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I guess he didn't want to bring up he doesn't really care for Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I guess
not, and I guess he also didn't notice any of that after buying tickets and going to...
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, okay, well, I guess poor advertising, but I guess somehow Jennifer knew. But whenever he gets up and leaves, an old flame of Jennifer appears from behind the seats and everything. And basically it's just there to introduce us to him because they kill him off later. So they're like, we had to make him skeezy, and he's just like, oh, don't you remember the good times we had together? She's like, you stood me up, you ruined my good sweater. And he's like, oh, come on, babe. Oh, come on, babe.
Please, babe.
And he's like literally here in the movie theater with another girl, and she's like, is she with you? He's like, nah, yeah, she could wait, you know. She's just whatever
until you come around.
Yes, exactly. I'm here all summer long.
Yeah.
And then he like gets up and leaves or whatever. And I guess in the meanwhile, like this same guy is being like absolutely obnoxious to the like umpteenth time, and he keeps leaning over to like this guy that I don't know if this guy's with him. He seems he seems totally disinterested, and they keep doing a pan over shot where he keeps talking to him, and it's like the rule of three, where on the third time it's Ricky there, just standing there, absolutely swole, about to rip out of his yellow polo and everything, and he's like, shh. And then just proceeds to like be strangling him behind the seats.
Yeah, and I love that the girlfriend turns around and like sees just the legs kicking up. And, and it's after the guy in the joke basically calls Eric's character calls him the F slur. And she's
yes, I forgot about that.
No, that's not true. And then they look up and the best friend in them is gone. And so I thought that was a subtle joke to be like, oh, she thinks that they're having.
Oh my gosh! I didn't even think about that. That's so funny.
And she's just like,
perhaps that polo is quite tight on you. Oh my gosh. But yes, going back to what you were mentioning, how does it make you feel that once you think, well, we're done with using like clips from the first movie, that they use a clip of the convenience store robbery that takes place at the beginning of Silent Night, Deadly Light in the movie.
Brilliant.
Of that they're watching.
Absolutely brilliant.
You're like flawless. Why did I think of it?
It isn't a subversion of expectation, and it's just enough that it's like, God damn it, they got me again. They made me watch more of the first movie again.
You're like, man, after 20, 30 minutes of that, I'm glad to never see a whole segment of that again. There you are.
It was just another one of those moments that was like ridiculous in the best way. I was like, of course they put that in the movie. We had to reuse this clip somewhere.
Yeah, and then it's like at that moment after that flashback that we have the beginning of the climactic ending in our eyes and everything, where it basically shows Ricky and Jennifer walking through the neighborhood as they see her old douchey boyfriend, like working with like a car battery and everything else. And he's like, hey, come back for me already and everything, or whatever. And she's like, get lost or whatever. And, you know, he keeps trying to, like, push himself onto her.
Yeah,
and then Ricky stands...
Remember all the fun times? It's junior prom and, you know, behind the bleachers or whatever?
Yes.
He's like, shut up. That's why Ricky gets all pissed at both of them. That's how he knows that she wasn't loyal, that she wasn't a virgin, because that's really important, I guess.
Yeah, punish. Sex is a sin, even though I partook in sin.
Yes, I know, because my older brother peeped through a keyhole at once. And
Word gets around real quick at the orphanage.
At the orphanage.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, and so then Ricky's finally had enough of this dude where he basically is choke slamming him next to the car as he grabs one of the battery charge clips and clips it into his mouth, probably on his tongue, and it proceeds to turn on the charger and electrocutes his head so much that his eyeballs explode behind his sunglasses.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
No notes.
And then we're back to square one where... Again, Jennifer is like, Ricky, what the hell?
Yeah, right.
You know,
a little bit of an overreaction.
Yes.
I will say.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, it's like understandable, but also was being a tool towards you. So have like at least a little bit of sympathy, because she just turns full antagonistic. And then like as soon as she's like hitting him, he grabs like a car antenna and she goes, uh-oh, and starts trying to run away before he starts choking her with the car antenna that he ripped off.
Yeah. Another overreaction from Ricky.
Another overreaction from Ricky, once again. And then, so you see like two murders back to back. Pop, you do that. And then we hear, freeze!
As the convenient cop witnesses it all.
Convenient cop with comedically oversized hat and everything. Yes. He's like, don't move. Don't try anything funny.
I love it. I do feel like they cast all of these characters perfectly. This guy's like 90 pounds, soaking wet, like scrawny little guy. He's like, all right, I know how to use this. Versus the yoked up, beefed up Chad garbage day killer.
And again, during this time, Ricky... one thing I have to express, it's not only the line deliveries, but he's making his eyeballs and eyebrows work perfectly. Sometimes he knows how to control them and when to, like, you know, again, because during that moment, the only thing that's moving is his eyebrows, like, you know, doing that. Whereas, like, he has, like, he's locked on eyes on this dude and everything. And whenever he tries to, like, cock the gun, he's like, I'm gonna slip these cuffs on you. Like, Ricky just grabs a gun, aims it back, and makes him pull the trigger to shoot himself in the head. And then, just like whenever Obi-Wan Kenobi gave Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber, we have Ricky with the revolver and the music going doo doo, and his laugh go.
I love him as a villain so much. The way he just like casually walks up to a spot, like he hits his mark, and then he just turns and he's like, oh, that's just how he moves everywhere. He has to like hit his spot and like look somewhere and then go.
Yeah, and like the laugh is perfect.
It's perfect.
It, like everything about his performance is perfect, but like perfect. Just because sometimes he'll do like a head tilt, or sometimes he'll just like be dead eye going,
yeah,
just doing something like that. It is, there is a reason why this, and it's not even to the garbage day moment and everything. This is just leading up to it. This is just swelling up into a giant thing and everything else. But then he just starts to stroll down the neighborhood, and this guy's like, hey! And he just like blowing the smoke from the revolver and everything.
He's lost it. He's on the loony bin.
And then at this point, if you don't know the context of Garbage Day, like Aaron and I have mentioned, not only a billion times on this episode, but just throughout the entirety of this podcast, there is just a regular guy setting out the trash by the curb and everything. And when every beautiful shot picks up the trash can, it reveals Ricky standing in the background as it zooms into him with a wide-eyed expression as it cuts to a close-up shot of him going, "Garbage day!" And the guy's like, "No!"
Just blows him
And he's like blown away and everything.
And he walks and does the...
Yeah. And he's just walking, and then you have like this girl on a bicycle bump into him, and he's like, "Sorry, mister," and he's like, "You're fine." You know, it just continues on.
Right.
Because were you worried like, oh no, there's a little girl?
No, because we know that this is why the film is so beautiful, is it lets us know who the targets are, what the rules of the universe are, the rules of the killer. I knew she was safe. She hadn't been naughty, but as soon as someone's naughty...
Yeah, you know, that guy was messing with filth and
Right.
everything. He deserved to be punished.
I know. The garbage? I mean, what were you thinking?
And then... Then you have, oh my gosh, the car like driving down the street. And he goes like,
Just start shooting through it.
shoots the car and everything. And the car like topples over, which it's quick to miss or whatever. But if you ever see the clip or anything, there's a stuntman who nearly got hit by the car. Like if you
really?
look, it is like literally, it feels like an inch away almost. Like from getting hit, because they had like a little, like the classic ramp to tilt the car over or whatever. But the stuntman was there and just barely got out of the way. And then they toppled it over and then car explodes.
Great.
Then we get to a beautiful like moment of him just strolling down the street, hearing the music go, doo, 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 you know, and it's just really reveling in the magnificent of this entire segment and everything. And then it gets to like a little like police barricade and everything. They're like, "Freeze!" And again, he just like looks over. He's like, "Ha ha ha ha!" And then he like starts like laughing and then pointing the gun towards his head. And they're like, "Wait, no, don't do it. It's not worth it."
Yeah, there's so much left to live for.
Yes, like a 180. It is beautiful because the cops are like, "Freeze!" You know, like they're locked and loaded and everything. But as soon as he tries suicide, immediately empathetic, like, "No, please."
No, guy, don't do it.
And then turns out no bullets left. No more bullets.
No bullets.
And then it's in that moment that poor Dr. Plume has been seen dead, being strangled by his own recording tape recorder, which they always have a beautiful thing whenever he finishes a story, like it cuts and you hear it go like spinning around.
Switch the tapes out. I love that little detail because they got to sneak in these little character moments that this film did not need. So I can stress so much that like of the plot and content, they did not need to have the attention of detail and like the good filmmaking practice that they had in certain elements. But one of those is like I love that like he kind of notices that he's only talking to him and not like humanizing with him whenever the track's not. So when he's looking out, he's like, "What are you looking at?" And he's like, "Bars."
So fucking good. Oh my god, so good, dude.
Just those little moments where they're like trying to crack the nut of this character who's a psychopath, and then the psychopath is just responds with psychopathy. Just bars.
Yeah, and as he kills the psychiatrist, I guess that gives him free way to escape.
Yeah.
I guess, and everything, because the one thing he has gone on and on about, which to the movie's credit, it's made clear on kind of like what he truly hates, which is Mother Superior, because he saw her as naughty and therefore was like, I need to finish my brother's work and everything, and going after her. It's just only unfortunate that like no original cast members came back because both Jeez Louise, I'm trying to think of the character's name. Mother Superior and Sister Mary, I think.
Oh, were they both recast?
They were both recast and everything.
It's hard to tell because the Mother Superior had a bunch of face makeup on. They
Yes.
gave her a fucked up face disease.
Stroke will do that, clearly.
I guess yeah, the face skin stroke then. I don't know. Like, I know strokes make your face all droopy, but it was like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not
It was like Toxic Avenger almost.
Yeah, he looked like some like caked up, scabbed up, like fucking mutation shit going on. But whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I'm ignorant. But...
You're good, but yes, like it's made clear because like basically they have a cutaway shot of like police asking Sister Mary, like, hey, do you know where Ricky would have gone? And it's like, I don't know, maybe try to find Mother Superior. And he's like, well, they'll never find her.
Well,
like,
it was something like,
it was like,
because he busted out and they were like, he's like, bad news, he's escaped, and he's on Christmas Eve, and he's like, the only person that he hates that much from they're like, the orphanage shut down, like Mother Superior, it's like, doesn't even work there anymore, she's at home all alone. And then he's like, oh no, and then he's like, well, he'll have to find her first, and of course he found her pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty damn quickly.
Yeah.
He's like making quick work, which I do love that he kills Santa off screen,
just to steal his change, really.
I know, just to wear the outfit, because
well, he also takes money, because like the little donation bucket that he was was ripped off, and he uses that to do a pay phone call to Mother Superior and be like, I'm coming, or whatever.
Yeah, like, Santa Claus is here. Yeah.
She's like, who is this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, and also the guy that was dressed up as Santa, you don't get to see him except his dead body, smushed up against the thing. But his voice just cracked me up, because usually with Santa voices, I'm usually used to like, like kind of like a deep bassy sort of thing. Yeah. But this was like, sound more like a gnome and everything. He's like,
gnome.
Yeah, gnome.
I can't remember what he was saying, but yeah, it did strike me as funny. He was like, I don't remember what it was.
It did not remind me of Santa.
Donations here, donations.
Money for the children.
Yeah, something like that.
Like something like that or whatever. But yeah, and so Ricky's going full Avenger mode, basically trying to avenge his brothers, Billy and everything. And we get to like Mother Superior, and I gotta be honest, like the actress they had played Mother Superior for the first film, like I could tell she was a very good actress, like very classically trained, knew exactly what she was doing.
She killed it.
Yeah, killed it and everything. And this actress had a high bar to match up to and everything, and I feel like it does it okay. Like it's serviceable enough to be like, okay, this is Mother Superior.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those like, I buy it, I guess.
I bought it because time passed and she had a stroke and she's in a wheelchair or whatever. But you're right, she didn't have the same presence that the first one did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Although, like, literally, Sister Mary, almost perfect casting. Like, I couldn't tell. Granted, she's in the film for so little or anything,
right? So
it's not too alarming. But yeah, Ricky just immediately finding, like, exactly where Mother Superior is, and then entering the house labeled 666. Ironic for that. I'm glad Mother Superior had no issue being in a
house with the sign of the devil on the front. I'm sure she was super chill with that.
Yeah, super chill. But then Ricky breaks down the door with an axe and proceeds to do the slide lock and drop it before just kicking the door open.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. But then you have, like, the thing that gets me about Mother Superior is the fact that in the first film, she is very fearless or whatever, very fearless. But literally in this one, she's like, oh shit, just trying to, like, roll in her wheelchair and everything. And, like, again, Ricky's going full, like, sicko mode, just giggling, laughing, hunting down. And whenever he finds, like, the room she's in, she's trying to, like, wheel, like, a little nightstand in front of the door, and he's trying to open it, and she keeps, like, ramming it shut, and, like, his fingers are trying to push the door open, and he slips back, and he speaks through a little hole he cut through, and he's like, that was close.
Yeah.
Just doing goofy ass shit like that. And then, like, she gets the idea of, like, oh, I'll do a run around and go through, like, the bathroom that connects to another room. And whenever he breaks in, the TV's playing the Christmas parade. It's like, oh, yes, Santa Claus is coming to town. And that distracts Ricky, I guess, because he hates Santa as he's destroying the TV. And she's trying to wheel towards the staircase and everything. And Ricky tries to go for the final swing to kill her, and she just chooses to launch herself down the stairs out of the wheelchair. So literally, elderly woman just dropping down the stairs before she gets in the next wheelchair, because goddamn, that axe was really stuck in that wheelchair like nobody's business. Like,
True.
no way to easily get it out.
And angle it out of there.
But it's just sort of like a weird turn of events because you have her like running for her life, being fearful, but then it's at the moment she has a kitchen knife and she rolls in. She's like, "Richard, you've been very naughty and you must be punished." I'm like, where is this confidence coming from? Like, all of a sudden now that you have a knife,
Right?
I guess, or whatever. It just kind of felt like a little weird and offset for me and everything. And then, of course, like, Ricky isn't afraid because it's an elderly beat up woman with a kitchen knife, and he's like a absolutely ripped dude with an axe.
Who's already been on a killing tear, yeah.
And, you know, again, she's like, "You will be punished." And he's like, "You're the naughty one." And he, like, goes for, like, the swing down, but then,
They do like a cut.
yeah, they do a cutaway of showing like the police swarming the area because like that's where they're going to, because it's like, oh yeah, he's going after Mother Superior. And so they go into the house or whatever, and they go into the kitchen and see like Mother Superior's like sitting there at the table, and Sister Mary's trying to talk to her and saying like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're okay, Mother Superior," and goes up and like shakes her, and her head rolls off because she's been decapitated by Ricky. And doing all that, and then I guess like Ricky's going on a killing spree trying to kill more people, but then he's riddled with bullets from the cops and everything, and a shotgun just blasts him through the window backwards on the ground, and it's like, oh, he's dead and everything or whatever. And I honestly couldn't even remember the original ending of this film because it had been a while since I had seen it or whatever. But it definitely was sort of, I don't know, a little more odd because it shows like Sister Mary laying on the ground, sort of like, like trying to wake up. But then whenever she wakes up, she sees like the decapitated head of Mother Superior staring at her. She screams. Ricky's eyes open up, and then it shows like a Santa arm swinging at the screen with a knife.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, notice like the gusto is kind of sucked out at that point and everything.
I mean,
so
I guess so, but I mean, madman goes on killing spree, gets shot, killed by police. Roll credits.
That's true, but is he? And I guess technically he's alive, which is why they shot that special feature and everything showing him years later.
I guess so. Well, we don't know that at the end of this film, right? I mean,
you see him open his eyes because whenever she screams, he opens his eyes for a brief second.
And that's the tease. Okay.
Yes, that's the tease and everything. So, yeah, like I said, it's not a terrible ending by any means of the word, but it definitely, like, for me, the true, like, standing ovation is, like, the end of that Garbage Day sequence.
Yeah.
Like, that is a 10 out of 10 segment in my eyes.
It just flows. That's a great sequence of a madman shooting some folks for no particular reason, with or without context. That's a great scene.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite kill in a film by chance or something?
I mean, I'm obviously partial to Garbage Day.
Yes, I think it's hard to top Garbage Day.
But as far as new ones go, man. I already blanked on it. What was the one I just said? It was in the beginning of the film that I was like, that was one of the top three.
Oh, the Jeep.
The Jeep, yeah, or he's like at the front of the wheel. I mean, the Jeep's good.
There's the car battery one.
Car battery.
Oh no, the umbrella.
It's the umbrella. That one's gotta be my fave if it's not Garbage Day.
That's fair. I gotta be honest. Like the Garbage Day. I mean, it's classic. It's hard to beat in terms of kills, but there's also, I don't know, it's so hard because you have the kill, then you have the circumstances of the kill, because I love the Jeep kill, but only because the woman comes in and says thank you.
Yes, it's not the kill itself, it's that.
Yeah, so that's just what kind of makes it difficult and everything. So I think I have to be unoriginal and say like Garbage Day, just by far just my favorite.
Taking out the trash, that's just good.
It's just perfect. It was perfect down to the very last. Anything else you want to give credit, mention, anything at all with Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 before we get to teasers for the next episode?
None at all. Great
All
movie.
right.
That's how you make a good bad movie, right there.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I can't argue with that whatsoever. Yeah. So, this film we're going to be watching next for the podcast was created 3 years later, and it's an adaptation of a Stephen King novel.
Okay.
What?
Another adaptation of a
said,
Stephen King novel.
Yes, another one. Yeah. Another one. Doing that. But this time it focuses on an Arthur that is stranded out in the wilderness, only to be kept comfort and taken care of by his number one fan. And it stars James Caan and Kathy Bates.
Monster House. I don't know.
No, that's pretty good.
I don't know.
Let's see. It's a name of a Maroon 5 song that
She Will Be Loved.
Yes, that absolutely. you got it, dude. Basically, okay, so like you would argue that I was feeling miserable being sick. What's the essence of miserable?
Misery.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry. I was like, fun. I don't know how to fix this. Yeah, it's misery.
Woo!
Yeah, it's misery.
We had to go.
Yes.
Through a miserable process.
Yes, it was misery itself. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with Misery. Missouri.
The state of Missouri.
That's where they're trapped. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.